Great Tartary before the reset. Before the reset of 1728, the known lands were completely different from what modern humanity believes it remembers. A vast civilization once extended across enormous regions, connected not only through commerce and navigation, but through a unified understanding of energy, architecture, human consciousness, and the true structure of the world itself. Centuries later, isolated fragments of that civilization would become known as Great Tartary, although that name represented only a small shadow of something far older and far more complex. Its cities possess proportions impossible by modern standards. Gigantic towers, cyclopean structures, monumental domes and buildings constructed with extraordinary precision appeared distributed throughout the continents as if humanity had once reached a level of development that was later completely erased. Many of those constructions seemed to function as energetic conductors. Energy did not depend on fuels as it does today. It was extracted from the environment itself, from storms, from the natural frequencies of the earth, and from enormous resonant structures connected together. But the true danger of Great Tartary was not merely technological, it was spiritual. The humans of that era still preserved fragments of ancestral knowledge regarding the lands beyond the limits of the first dome, which later became the ice walls. They knew the known lands were not everything that existed. Ancient navigators were capable of crossing forbidden regions, expeditions disappeared beyond the southern seas, and entire groups maintained contact with extraterrestrial civilizations located outside the first dome. Humanity had not yet been completely separated from its origin, and that clearly represented a threat to the colonizers. The factions later known as the Anunnaki custodians understood that a humanity connected to its true past could never remain controlled indefinitely. The ancients preserved spiritual independence, territorial understanding, and knowledge about the existence of the dome, which would later be transformed into the projector of the skies we see today. They understood that the skies would become what future generations would be forced to believe. The principal colonizers were the custodians, beings known for their dark masks and black robes. Colossal motherships and multiple leaders controlled from a distance through human intermediaries the decisions woven throughout the known continents. After several treaties and agreements, the Anunnaki also took control of the human colony in what we know as Earth. Between the two most powerful civilizations under this great dome of 178 different worlds, they divided control and possession of these lands in order to keep humanity inside the walls and in complete ignorance of what existed around them. Above all, they worked to erase the human past almost completely. During the previous cycle, the custodians and the Anunnaki fought the most brutal and violent conflict over multiple territories and causes now unknown. Because of this, they were forced to temporarily delegate control to inferior beings that we call the Greys, originating from Orion, along with some Etamines from Draco, although the Greys ultimately gained greater dominance. But their control left cracks everywhere, since they focused only on specific objectives they required at the time. Because of this, the Anakim giants arrived in the human lands and united in order to forge one of the greatest empires these lands had ever seen. Great Tartary. Humans and giants finally joined together to carry forward a challenge of advanced technology based on free energy. When most of the custodians eventually returned, defeated by the power of the Anunnaki, they discovered their most prized colony immersed in uncontrolled technological and spiritual advancement. This alarmed their leaders and marked the beginning of the destabilization period prior to the reset, following new agreements with the Anunnaki. Across different territories, anomalies began to appear. Red skies, enormous electrical storms, unnatural fogs, and subterranean vibrations started affecting entire regions. Many trade routes vanished. Communication between cities became increasingly difficult. At the same time, sudden wars emerged between territories that had coexisted in relative stability for centuries. Historical records from that era began to fragment, as if someone were deliberately attempting to destroy the continuity of human memory itself. Mnemonic resynchronization attacks appeared almost simultaneously across several Tartarian core centers. Everyone understood what it meant. A new reset was approaching. Then finally, 1728 arrived. The collapse did not occur in a single visible way for all humanity. In some regions it manifested through massive floods, in others through unknown diseases. Entire cities disappeared beneath fires impossible to contain. Complete regions became empty of population within months. Many gigantic structures were destroyed from within, while others remained abandoned, slowly turning into silent ruins that centuries later would be classified merely as architectural mysteries. Battles were fought in some of the most strategic centers, but unfortunately the giants' technology at that time had little effect against the overwhelming power deployed by the colonizers. The reset was never intended merely to destroy cities. It sought to destroy human memory itself and begin again in a far stricter and crueler form. The same one humanity lives under today. After 1728 came the great repopulation of 1729. New generations introduced through 7-month-old laboratory babies were placed throughout the known lands under a completely different system. Education was redesigned from zero. Ancient maps disappeared. Knowledge regarding the lands beyond the first dome was eliminated, and enormous walls were established surrounding everything. The existence of other territories gradually became myth, while any theory questioning the official narrative began to be ridiculed and attacked. Stories about giants, advanced civilizations, and ancestral technologies were also ridiculed or transformed into fantasy. In most rewritten ancient texts, the giants became merely dangerous beings described as enemies of the gods. And above all of this, a new narrative emerged to replace humanity's original memory. The idea of outer space, combined with the dome projector and its immense simulated depth. As centuries passed, future societies would be conditioned to believe they inhabited a tiny, insignificant point lost within an infinite universe filled with galaxies and spheres floating through the void. Mathematics, institutional science, and astronomical models slowly reconstructed themselves around this new mental structure. The objective was not merely scientific, it was psychological. A human who feels small becomes easier to control. Meanwhile, the ruins of Great Tartary remained scattered throughout the world like scars of a civilization that was never supposed to be remembered. Impossible buildings, abandoned energetic structures, and fragmented maps survived hidden beneath layers of historical reinterpretation. And although most of humanity learned to ignore them, some slowly began to notice that something did not fully align with the official story. On June 30th, 1908, in Tunguska, It was discovered that remnants of a large Tartarian core center still remained active, even with living beings present there. It was destroyed using custodian technology through an enormous explosion. Because behind every ancient ruin, behind every impossible structure, and behind every forgotten map, there seemed to exist the shadow of a far older truth. A truth buried beneath the reset of 1728.